Is Hadoop moving beyond things like predictive analytics? Are there any unusual use cases you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, the use cases are really growing. I mean, predictive analytics still is extremely valuable as far as you take a massive amount of data and you run like a clustering algorithm or use a recommendation engine against it. And that just services a number of really important, predictive analytics use cases, like, any sort of targeted marketing. So, we've all talked about things like, targeting marketing on the web and online buying, but think about like set-top boxes as far as if you're a cable provider, even though they know everything you watch for the last year, every program, they're still serving you the same menu they serve everyone else. So there's a lot more opportunity there, but the use cases are growing too. So I think we're seeing a lot of work around interactive SQL, and you probably have some conversations about that this week, and there's open source projects, there's also some enterprise companies that are bringing proprietary technologies to market. So we're seeing more of the traditional BI for data exploration. I think when you get out in the unusual ones, it's really what we're seeing around the database technology on top of Hadoop, which is HBase. And MapR did some advancements to HBase, and it's really making it now appropriate for what I'd call kind of some lightweight OLTP applications. And so one of the projects we're working on is with a telco provider, and they're building a telco billing application on top of MapR's implementation of HBase.
No kidding.
And so it's kind of obvious requirement if you think about it, because 20 years ago you had one telephone, you made 100 calls a week, so not a lot of transaction activity. Well, now you've got probably a phone for everybody in your family, a phone at home, a phone at work, you got data plans, SMS messages, so they need something that'll scale better and then can do it at about 1/10 of the cost. So that's probably one of the outliers. I think we're starting to see just the beginning of some, what I'd call like a kind of lightweight OLTP.
Sure. Interesting. So is a convergence of SQL and Hadoop an evolution or a revolution?
Yeah, SQL and Hadoop, it's really interesting. I was an executive at Brio Technologies back in the 90s, and of course we had one of the best business intelligence tools in the market with SQL connectivity to everything and all the ERPs. So when I look at it in that context, I say, wow, we're really excited about things we're doing back in 1995. So in that case, you say not so much, but it really does add value to Hadoop in a couple ways. One is just pragmatically, you are able to do that sort of data exploration. And you can do that with the talent within your organization that has that query language experience. So it opens up to Hadoop to a broader audience within your organization. And so it has value there. I think where it gets to be more revolutionary is when you think about Hadoop as a big data platform. So it started out in batch predictive analytics, but it's grown to do batch SQL processing, file-based processing with MapR, more real-time processing, streaming, search, and so as you grow that expanded set of APIs, it starts becoming much more of a general purpose big data platform, and I think that's probably the part that's revolutionary, is not interactive SQL as a standalone technology, but as part of an API set that really starts allowing you to really scale a broader range of applications.
Does the current availability of Hadoop talent make it a safe or an unsafe choice for businesses?
Yeah, there definitely is a tremendous demand. I think being a Hadoop-trained technical person today is like being an Oracle database in about 1991, because you're going to be able to write your ticket for the next 20 years. And so for a CIO or a CTO that's making a bet on Hadoop, I'd probably see it as a positive. If I provide some training for my existing staff, if I want to recruit talent in, they're going to want to work on Hadoop. That's what they're going to want to put on their resume. That's going to be really the type of technology they want to work on. So I think that's a draw. I think there is a tax on that as far as you get some upfront training, some upfront recruiting, and then retention-wise, you're probably going to pay a little bit more for that talent versus others. On the other hand, if you weren't in the hot technology space, how are you going to be able to attract the best people and retain them? So if you went into a niche technology or you retain your applications on some of the older technologies out there, then you're losing that opportunity to bring some real talent into your organization.
Last question for you. Do you feel that Hadoop is becoming a critical part of business infrastructure?
Yeah, and it's really changed. If I think about being at this conference or any of the big data conferences a couple years ago, we were talking to customers about, what is Hadoop? What are the capabilities? What sort of use cases is it appropriate for? Where do I start? And I can recall conversations with financial services companies where they'd outline, here's my 25 potential use cases. Where do I start? And it was kind of this matching game of what's the highest business value to you, and then what's your opportunity of really being able to get this pulled off as a production app. Now the requirements are getting to be much more mature. It's around service levels, high availability, dependability, backup, disaster recovery. And then most recently, a lot of clamor around what I talked about just a moment ago, which is a big data platform. Is they don't want to have to deploy multiple technologies, and they don't want to have to even deploy multiple Hadoop clusters. So they'd like one big data internal cloud that they can provision for all sorts of different use cases and uses within the organization. So in some cases, the API set's been the limiting factor. So they'll say, well, I can't do everything in Hadoop, so I'll still do some in either a legacy platform or in another big data technology platform, let's say like Cassandra, right? But as we grow that API set, that need goes away, and you start being able to have your full set of use cases run on the same cluster. And then for deploying multiple Hadoop clusters, it creates a silo of information in the organization that's undesirable. So there, it's really around a lot of enterprise features about, how do you do provisioning of applications? How do you do multi-tenancy? So you can have a production workload that you can guarantee a service level on, but then also have exploratory workloads or decision support workloads, and not have those applications either impact the underlying system or have those applications impact each other. So those are the type of requirements we're hearing now, which is quite a contrast from what we heard a couple of years ago.
Interesting. Thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks.